being able to see where people have been exposed, where people with the virus have been, will allow us to make really fast decisions in terms of needing to shut down an area, needing to alert people to the fact that they've been exposed, thus they immediately should go into self-quarantine. Those were tools that we didn't have at the very beginning, but we've seen how they've worked today. Right. As when they get to work, is it makes a big difference in flattening the peak.
Until COVID-19 is behind us, not much else matters. Who's getting us going again? What will it look like when we do? How can this change the world for better? We're talking to the people innovating for the next phase of this crisis and beyond. The people who are trying to understand what the future will look like and innovating to make it a safer and prosperous world for all of us. This is COVID-19 and Crisis Innovation, a Better Innovation series.
Hey, Better Innovation, it's Jeff. This is the first episode in our new series, COVID-19 and Crisis Innovation. We decided to launch the series because we wanted to bring to you the innovation stories from the front lines of the fight against this deadly virus. So getting this first episode, our launch episode in the series right, this was really important to me. Our guest today in our new Better Innovation virtual studio is Sienna Leis. I've been working with Sienna on this open source movement called COVID Safe Paths. This started at MIT in late February, early March-ish, and the focus is to fight the spread of COVID-19, and not just with innovative technology, but leveraging this rich community that has incredibly diverse experiences. It's what I love about Cambridge. It's this remarkable ecosystem. You've heard me talk about it on the podcast many times. It's the reason why we at EY based our advanced tech lab there. We want to be part of this rich community. Okay, let me go back to SafePaths. SafePaths is in this new contact tracing family of technology. You've probably been reading about it, watching reports on television, and how it's being used to fight the spread of the virus. Sienna is graduating in just a matter of a few days from the Harvard Kennedy School. She's got this deep experience in crisis management and working in development all around the world. She's also leading the U.S. rollout of SafePaths. Sienna has such a great story to tell about the need for innovative technology and how it's being used to address one of the most difficult problems the world is facing today. We've recorded all 50 plus of our Better Innovation episodes. We've always been live in the studio with our guests. I've got this thing about great audio, and our expert team at Hogarth, they always make sure our audio is pristine. So we did our audio best today as we pivot to this new virtual interview format on Better Innovation. I hope you enjoy. Sienna, welcome to the show today.
Thanks so much, Jeff. It's great to be here.
You have been working around the clock, and you're playing such an important role in the fight against COVID-19. Just wanted to start by saying how much I appreciate you're taking some time out of your really busy day today and this week to be with our Better Innovation listening audience.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. I think it's a great opportunity to be able to reflect on our work.
This is a new format for us today, and this is the first. We've had about 52, I think we're up to, episodes of Better Innovation. This is season 3. We're always face-to-face. We're always together live in the studio. So we're not doing that today. We're coming at you virtually. I also want to say that you're launching our special COVID-19 series. This is a real story of innovation. We're not talking about an idea that came about in a sterile laboratory of innovation, but we're using innovative technology to address the most pressing issue that we're dealing with today as a society.
Absolutely. I think of the word innovation, and I actually think it goes beyond technology and the way that we've been using it in a lot of manners. Innovation in this case and in the last 6 weeks has really met innovation in how we think, how we work together, how we come together. And so for me, that's really the highlight of this story.
We're going to go through what this, we're talking about SafePaths today and this incredible technology platform that has spawned from the great MIT Media Lab. If I could just suggest as a framework to guide our discussion today, we've been We've been talking a bit about now, next, and beyond. And as we look at, for example, there are certain things that are happening today, the now, the actions that we're taking as a society in the name of public health. What's next could be as we pivot to the reemergence of society and of workforces and jobs that are coming back online. And then the beyond, the fixing of these frail institutions, that there is a bright light shining on those failures. And how can we build stronger resilience so when the next crisis happens, how we can emerge stronger as a society. So this now, next, and beyond, we'll talk about COVID-19 from each of these three dimensions today, but we've mentioned this term of art a few times already, contact tracing. Let's spend a few minutes and unpack that. What is contact tracing, and why is it so important in fighting the spread of COVID-19?
As you mentioned before, I definitely was one of those who had never heard of contact tracing prior to about 6 weeks ago. But it's exactly that. It's identifying and tracing the people that may have come into contact with an infected person. This is critical with COVID-19 and has been proven to be an effective tool in, diseases like Ebola, SARS, in the sense that when we're in this zone of unknown, we don't know exactly how the virus spreads from person to person, if it's limited to person, is it's important to know where the infected person, the patient, has been in order to try to prevent a larger outbreak, in order to inform the people that have been in contact with the infected person to quarantine, in this case, or to self-isolate. And so it becomes this really critical tool with or without technology in order for public health departments in order to really protect their community.
Let's think about it in the context of when contact tracing emerges. Let's just tell the story of when it happens. Take it from the time when somebody is in a hospital, they just are tested and they determined that they were positive. And now you have, in an interview context, you start to address the needs to determine those contexts, right? Tell the story about what's the context when this arises.
Sure. What was shocking to me about contact tracing today is that it greatly varies depending on where you are. What we found in our initial conversations with various states and cities and countries, probably about a month ago, was that this interview and the way that you referred to it typically takes place over the phone. And that was shocking to me. I was actually tested, which a few people know, about 3 weeks ago, and went through the process of kind of fear and preparation and playing the waiting game to get my results, which happened actually quite amazingly in about a day and a half. But in that day and a half, you're prepared for the worst. And so in my case, I received a letter essentially via email, but if I had been positive, I would have received a phone call from the public health department. I can only imagine the emotion that would go through you if you received the news. Again, the fear of the unknown. We hear the horror stories. At that time, we were really hearing the stories out of Italy and China. And so at that time, you receive this news, you're by yourself or you're with your family at your home. The contact tracer or public health official walks you through really where have you been in the last 2, 3, 4 weeks. If you can put yourself in the position of that patient, the last thing you're thinking about is remembering that I stopped at a fast food restaurant to, order food, and I ended up staying there because I got a phone call and was standing next to someone in the line for an extended period of time. It's very difficult in a moment of stress.
Especially at that time, because just as you said, Sienna, it is very stressful and I don't know about you, but it's hard to remember where you were even 2, 3, 4 days ago and to trace your steps. And so let's talk about, I want to go to Safe Paths and this incredible movement that we're all part of. And Sienna, you and I have been working pretty closely together, and we've had a team from EY working with the SafePaths team now for just over a month, and as part of this incredible SafePaths movement that has been formed, and I just wanted to highlight the use of that word that I think sometimes it can be overused, and you can look at the range of sometimes we work on projects, sometimes we work on initiatives. Something more impactful is a movement. I really think movement is the right word to describe what SafePaths is all about. Would you agree with that, Sienna?
Absolutely. We came together really with a goal of trying to find a solution for what we were watching really unravel before our eyes. And that came first in the form of technology, of a technical tool. But as you mentioned, really, we became united over this common goal of trying to make a difference, which I mentioned before. And so we are not all technical people. We are marketers, we're professors, we're data scientists, we're people that just want to make a contribution in whatever way possible. And through that, I think we've had people as young as probably 14, 13 join us that want to figure out how can they help their community, whether that's helping essential workers, helping people that have to go out every day at a time that we're isolated, to helping societies come back to life, come back to business. And what is that overlap? What does it look like? And so that's our team. They're people that are unified, not by function, but by passion.
Let's go back in time a bit. It's only been about 5 weeks, maybe just a little bit longer. I think we joined from EY on day 8. I think you were maybe a few days, Sienna, before that. And this spawned from our visionary, Ramesh Raskar, is an associate professor at MIT, and he is the visionary behind SafePaths. It spawns from the famed MIT Media Lab, and as many other great inventions that have come from MIT, the idea to apply technology to that very problem for SafePaths, and it really has spawned into a large movement now with hundreds of people in an open source movement coming together to as you say, Sienna, unified for that cause. Now, give us an example of the individuals involved in the movement and where they came from and what the SafePaths movement is trying to accomplish, Sienna.
Absolutely. We're a diverse group. Myself, I'm a graduate student at the Harvard Kennedy School. I was not a student of Ramesh, but brought on board by students of Ramesh.
I think we're all a student of Ramesh now, just as an aside. Is that fair?
Ramesh provides definitely our daily dose of inspiration during a tough time, but our specific team is a combination of volunteers, many of whom are students. We now have a team comprised of Harvard undergraduates, Kennedy School, Business School graduate students. That's matched by MIT students of all levels, focused from everything from engineering to economics. We all, I think, are united by a very strong focus on general economic development. And that has really, I think, informed the conversations that we've had. On the EY side, your team also didn't necessarily know each other, which we forget sometimes before this project started. The EY volunteers have been tremendous. They have empowered us and enabled us to do things that we knew we needed to do very early on, but working 16-hour days, 7 days a week, made that challenging. And so the organizational knowledge has really made a tremendous difference in how we're able to talk to, interact with, train, become a resource for different jurisdictions around the world. So it's been really an interesting learning experience and giving experience, quite honestly.
And I have to say that from our standpoint, that we got the call, as I mentioned, just after that first week, and from one of the board members, John Warner, who incidentally was the very first guest on Better Innovation. Season 1, Episode 1, John Warner launched Better Innovation, and he made the call, and it has been so inspiring to see the many people from the firm that I love join this cause and help and progress many areas within within SafePaths. I think it'd be helpful for our audience to understand that when we talk about this technology package, that there are two components. There's a mobile app, and then there's a web app that health officials use. Sienna, do you want to just walk through how they work together?
Sure. SafePaths is the application that an individual can download, whether it's an app that has been selected by their public health department or not. And we have tens of thousands of people really that have downloaded the original iteration of SafePaths and are using it today. Safe Places, in complement to SafePaths, is the public health tool. This is also a very simple technology that can be downloaded by the public health official to essentially start to see where hotspots may occur in society. And so the Safe Paths tool that's on the individual's telephone, essentially it allows you to share data that's anonymized. So your name doesn't get shared, your personal information, your personal address will not get shared with the public health department. Instead, you retain full control of your data. And at that point, it's shared with the public health official. The public health official essentially has all of these sets of data, and they'll begin to see where they need to focus on in terms of community protection and future outbreaks.
Sienna, you said something really important. That data is on your mobile device. You have that data about your own GPS trail that's recorded on your phone in 5-minute increments, latitude and longitude, where you've been. That's your data. And the only way that it gets to a public health official is if you affirmatively share that data.
The privacy first focus allows us to leverage kind of the best of technical tools while still ensuring that kind of the basic rights as it relates to privacy aren't violated for individuals.
There were some countries that perhaps didn't lead with a privacy by design principle, and they achieved somewhat positive benefits by, let's say, commandeering this data in a more surveillance state. That's not the intent of the SafePaths program, is it? This is entirely the opposite. Perhaps we'd like to achieve the same positive results, but in a very privacy-preserving manner. We've been focusing very much on public health issues, and that's the now that we're in, and how could this SafePaths program help us as individuals, society. Let's talk a little bit about the reemergence and workforces coming back online. If you're our listening audience would be interested to know how SafePaths as a platform could be used by a large employer or a small employer, and how could it be used to bring society back online?
I think this is the heart of our discussions now. It's been interesting because when we first started this work, a little more than a month ago, we were really focused on conversations with public health officials. We've seen that evolve in the past week or two to this intersection of public sector and private sector leaders, as private sector leaders are very vested in society being able to reopen, businesses being able to reopen, and people being able to go back to work. Technical tools like SafePaths are critical when we look at everything from, my favorite example is tourism. What's key is you look at airlines, you look at airports, you look at hotel properties, resorts, is it's not only about protecting your workers, your community, the people around you, but it's also about being a safe place for people to travel to. So by being able to institute tools, and again, contact tracing is just one piece of testing, tracing, treating that we talk about every day. But with contact tracing at the heart of that is you're able to start to reassure and create a safe environment for everyone, no matter what their role is in your particular kind of bubble of the world, as we look at reemerging.
And go back to the point you raised about the public and private sector together. We are starting to see really impactful examples of public-private partnerships, private enterprises and consortiums from within the private sector, civil society, helping the public sector that, let's face it, is extremely focused on the public health, the now, keeping people healthy and dealing with urgent medical and public health needs, it's been so inspiring to see in some jurisdictions you have this cross-sector collaboration of these unique partnerships that are now working to bring societies back online. And that's a complicated question, isn't it?
Yes, for sure. And we're seeing that especially in the United States, but in areas and countries all over the world, of that friction really between, I think, kind of the medical professional community and the private sector, and then just the average citizen like we are, really wanting to get back to work. And so tools like this, I think, become just even more critical. And I go back a little bit to the safe places piece of our technology. Is safe places really, when you think of, and we've heard of this idea of society reopening bit by bit, or there might be ebbs and flows of, where we're allowed to move about a little bit more freely, and that might shut down again or be restricted to a certain extent, depending on waves and peaks of the virus. And so being able to see where people have been exposed, where people with the virus have been, will allow us to make really fast decisions in terms of needing to shut down an area, needing to alert people to the fact that they've been exposed, thus they immediately should go into self-quarantine. Those were tools that we didn't have at the very beginning, but we've seen how they've worked today. Right. As when they get to work, it makes a big difference in flattening the peak.
That's a good bridge to, as we go back to the framework, our now, next, beyond. And I think that's a great bridge to the beyond. What do you think, Sienna, about that? What are some of the changes that, as we look beyond the immediate of how do we reopen society, and what do you think is going to change from an institution and societal level in terms of what this pandemic has meant for us? I mean, you could look at that. That's such a hard question to answer because of the wide ramifications that this will have on us from a work perspective and how we live and go to school and work. What do you think?
I start with my son. I have a 3-year-old. We walk into daycare every day, and it was one of the first places in our community that closed down. And it was funny because we teach children the good habits of wash your hands, wash them for this long, the things that we've been now taught to do in the last month. And that was really, we chuckled about this when COVID-19 really came to the forefront, is really now we're doing what we should have been doing all along, just to be a little bit more conscious of being clean, washing our hands, very basic things. And so I see that as a huge positive. And their habits, again, my 3-year-old now knows how to wash his hands for 20 seconds and sing a song. I think those are really incredible changes. But when you look at a society, I think we're going to see negatives and positives. We're going to see some businesses go away. There's going to be places that don't survive this. And through technology, whether it's AI, automation, we're going to see them replaced in a way that will be quite tragic for probably a lot of small business owners throughout the world. But we're also going to see efficiencies, and we've seen it in our own project, is people that are able to achieve and do really incredible work from their homes while making dinner, while multitasking, while maintaining this really high quality of life that was not possible or is not possible when you have to show up in an office every morning. And that's a huge positive. But in general, I feel like we are going to see in each of our communities just the impact of COVID, because there are going to be businesses, storefronts that just never open again. And we need to figure out how society includes those people, because as you described, COVID shining a light, it's also continued to shine a light on the incredible, huge differences that exist in the United States and throughout the world, socioeconomically, in the haves and have-nots. And so that's a part of society that we want to make sure isn't left behind in this new culture of pandemic.
I think that is so well said, and you can look at other periods and And for example, from the Industrial Revolution, that we are a very resilient bunch. We find new ways to solve problems, and for every job that may go away or business that I think we're hopeful that there'll be others that can spring up and opportunities. And it may be hard for us to see that today as we're all still dealing with the isolation and the immediacy of it, but that there is great hope. And we can already see that this crisis has been an accelerant to many issues that have been wavering and haven't really, as a society, figured out how we feel, for example, about issues like data privacy. And there is such an immediate focus on privacy from, in particular, some of the issues that we talked about, that it is certainly raising this issue to the forefront. And that is one hope I have, is that we can advance through these issues and we can find more common ground to solve problems in new ways. Sienna, thank you again so much for your time. It has been another hectic week. We're recording this on our Friday afternoon, and just also want to say that it's such an unprecedented time. Our hearts go out to all those who have lost loved ones and to such a terrible virus. To our Better Innovation listening audience, please keep tuning in for more episodes. We're not quite sure how many episodes we're going to have. We have so many great stories of innovation from around the world that's related to COVID-19, and we want to bring those stories to you. Again, thank you so much. Take care, everybody.
This has been Better Innovation from EY. Let us know what you think about the show by leaving a review or by reaching out to Jeff at jeffrey.saviano@ey.com or find him on Twitter at Jeffrey Saviano. Better Innovation is produced by the great team at Hogarth Worldwide.